If you don't do those things, they will only work until a point, and then eventually their effectiveness will drop off pretty aggressively. So today's the day I'm going to tell you exactly why home workouts don't work. And before you get angry at me at the comment section, I encourage you to watch the video, because when you comment before watching the video, sometimes you look like a silly sausage, and no one wants to look like a silly sausage. So what we're going to do, Sydney Cummings, dumbbell low impact legs at home, all fitness levels stronger day one. I respect Sydney, I like her content, I think she does well, but there are a few issues with home workouts that need to be addressed, and some of them might actually be on you. Before we do so, you know I've got to say a couple of things. Firstly, if you like the video at any point or even just agree with what I'm saying, I would appreciate it if you did subscribe to the channel, because it does mean a lot to me, because I need to feel loved right now. Secondly, tfnl clothing, respect it. As always, links in the description, so have a gander if you fancy it. No, we're not going to talk about the whole workout because it's 40 minutes and you don't want to tolerate me speaking for that long. I know you don't. A couple of things. So home workouts, off the bat, actually do work, but a lot of the reasons as to why they don't work, well, actually two primary reasons. Number one, limited progression. Number two, which falls kind of on you, is people don't train hard enough. When we're looking at movements like this, where a squat pattern is really good for the old leggy poos, which we like, especially the quads, we do want to consider where the dumbbell is being loaded. When the dumbbell is in front of you like this, we call that anterior loading, which means obviously anterior in front, loading, obviously loaded in front. That can actually result in a lot of external weaknesses from giving out before your legs do, which then in turn can actually reduce the effectiveness of the movement. What I would actually do is I'd actually try and, rather than loading up here, try and hold up here, kind of rest them more on the shoulders, which kind of makes it a little bit easier to hold, which means that your arms, your core, and other external variables might be less inclined to give out before your legs do, thus making the movement a little bit more effective. But a couple of things, as I mentioned, that kind of really lead to home workouts being quite limited is lack of progression. Realistically, if you're looking at building muscle in any capacity, and when you're doing a workout like this, which is heavily resistance focused, you probably are looking at building muscle in some capacity. No, that doesn't necessarily mean you're trying to be a bodybuilder, it just means you're trying to build some muscle. One of the big things we need to look at there is progressive overload. And what that essentially means is, can you do more reps or can you do more weight? And when you are a bit limited to equipment, weight is probably going to be a bit limited too. And therefore your progressive overload ceiling of how hard you can push a movement and how strong you can get is also by default going to be limited as well, which again kind of presents a limitation as to how far you can go with home workouts. Another thing which can actually really stop home workouts from working is you not working hard enough. Whether you're at home, whether you're at the gym, whatever you are doing, there's one consistency there, which is to build muscle, you need to stimulate the muscle and cause adaptation to occur. And when we're considering that, what we really want to do is actually train hard enough, so to, if not close to failure. And quite frankly, if you can progressively overload consistently, no, not necessarily every week, but progressively overload for a long period of time, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks for months, maybe even years, and you can train hard enough, then yes, home workouts will actually work really well. You can see some incredible gains doing home workouts. But if you can't do those two things, progressive overload and train hard enough, how effective that home workout is for building muscle anyway is going to be limited. Sure, you may see results for a while. To progress further, you're going to have to push further, and if you're limited to, like I said, equipment and training intensity, you're going to be a bit stuck. Things like this, we've got a squat pattern in here already, which is fantastic, and now we've got a hinge pattern as well. Honestly, you've nailed this so far. What I would say is one of the difficulties there, one of the issues I have with that is a lot of people when they're doing hinge patterns actually go too low. And they'll say to me, oh Harry, why does my lower back hurt so much when I'm doing an RDL or a stiff leg deadlift? Firstly, your lower back is a prime mover here, so it is going to hurt because it is actually working. And that's not a bad thing. Just because your lower back hurts doesn't mean you've hurt yourself or you're injured. It just means that your lower back muscles are doing their job. Look how low Sydney is going here, exceptionally low. And if we go back a bit, when do her hips stop traveling back? So hips back, there. Her hips stopped probably even sooner than this, but she's still going. Once your hips are no longer traveling backwards and you're no longer hinging at the hips, your lower back is taking over massively. So if you actually want to shift the emphasis to your glutes, for example, we bend the knees slightly and drive the hips back. If you want to shift the emphasis to the hamstrings a bit more, we'd straighten the legs slightly And again, still shift the hips back. When you bend the knees, it does take the hamstrings slightly out of the equation, not entirely, but it does shift the emphasis to the glutes as the prime mover. But when you straighten the legs, it shifts the emphasis over to the hamstrings as the prime mover. But the key thing between both of those is your hips need to travel back. More range of motion isn't necessarily better here. It's more relevant range of motion. Hips back, stop. Range of motion's done, probably higher than this, so let's say upper shin, but we're still going. And then people say, oh, my lower back hurts. That's probably why you're probably going too low. And then we move on to like a lunge pattern, which again, depending on how you do it, will shift emphasis from the quads to glutes. If your shins are a bit more vertical, or your front shin is a bit more vertical, I should say, then you're going to shift a bit more emphasis to the glutes because the quads aren't going to be working as much because they're not going through as much of a range of motion. If your knees are bending a lot, so you're getting a lot of knee travel, that means a lot of knee flexion, which means a lot of quad. Whether you do a lunge or a split squat is kind of entirely up to you because they both kind of do the same things. They're both working the glutes in the same position. They're both working the quads in the same position. What I would say is just because it's not a pulling motion doesn't mean you shouldn't use straps. Oftentimes people say to me, oh, Harry, I was doing lunges, but my grip gave out. But because it's not a row, I didn't use straps. Well, if your grip is involved in any capacity and it's preventing you from pushing to failure because it's providing a limitation, then why would you not remove the limitation and make the movement more effective for the intended musculature, being the quads and the glutes? So don't be afraid to strap up. You can get them very cheap online. I'm pretty sure you can get a set of decent enough straps for $10. Mine cost about $10 and I bought them 4 years ago and they're still going strong. So you don't need to waste money on expensive stuff. Just something to help remove grip as a limiting factor, which in turn will also make the movement a bit nicer because you won't be dying at the forearms, and also will actually make the movement a bit more effective for you, and you'll get more bang for your buck, which then in turn makes the home workout more effective for potentially even longer. Very quickly, link down below. You know we've got to say it. There's a link to work with myself on a one-to-one online coaching basis where I can help you achieve your goals, whatever they may be, and also wherever you may be in the world or wherever you may be regarding the gym or at home. I coach regardless of environment. You've also got the link to the TFNL training teams, which for less than $1 a day, you can either follow a home workout program or a gym workout program that I've created for the team. You've also got the link to the TFNL clothing, and you also got the link to the TFNL workout guides, which tell you what to do, show you how to do it, and also tell you why you should do it too. So if any of those things tickle your pickle, they are always linked down below in the description. This is something that's actually really nice because one of the issues I always have with home workouts is, especially with lower body stuff, is that the hamstrings are commonly neglected. Sure, we've got like an RDL hinge pattern, they're great for the hamstrings, but we do want a knee flexion movement like a leg curl in there to actually kind of effectively target the hamstrings. What I would say, dumbbell leg curl, fantastic, but you can actually make it a little bit better because you see the range of motion's a bit limited here. Sydney's doing a great job where she's stopping when her shins are vertical, because anything beyond that is not really hamstring, it's actually more gravity, to be honest. But the range of motion is still very small. Using a band could actually be a little bit better. Band and dumbbell, fantastic, mixing them both, but it's probably going to be quite hard to set up. But wrapping a band around your legs and anchoring it elsewhere means you're going to have tension throughout the entire movement. So if you could essentially try and kick your bum and shorten the hamstrings even further, you're probably going to find that movement to be more effective. The issue with that, in fairness, is that because band tension increases as you go through the movement, and the hamstrings may typically get weaker as they get shorter, the resistance profile is kind of opposite. We'd want it to be heavier at the start, lighter at the top, but instead it's lighter at the start, heavier at the top. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Provided you're doing either of these movements to failure, being that a dumbbell or banded leg curl, or close to failure, you're probably going to be fine. What I do also find with this movement when I have done it previously, if you put like a foam roller or maybe roll a few jumpers up and put them under your hips so you can elevate the hips slightly, I do find it personally to be a bit nicer on the hamstrings and arguably a bit more effective too. And now shifting over to like this heel elevated goblet squat, I respect it. So when the heel is elevated, it's going to put you in a position where you're probably actually going to get a bit lower, therefore go through more knee flexion, therefore lengthen the quads more, thus making this more effective for the quads because again, they're going through a greater range of motion. Again, because it was anterior loaded, you're probably going to find your core or arms, maybe even shoulders give out quite quickly. Towards the end of the workout, you would hopefully close that gap. What I would say is this workout so far has been very quad dominant with a lot of squat and lunge patterns. There's a fair room in here to include like a shorter position glute movement. So in this case, I would probably consider a single leg glute bridge with a dumbbell, obviously, where you can do that thrust pattern or bridge pattern and put the glute in a shortened position, because then you're working the hamstrings fairly well with a hinge and a curl. You're working the quads fairly well with some squat patterns and lunge patterns. You're also getting some good glute work in there with the lunges, with the squats, with the RDLs, but also with the hip thrust as well. Honestly, if you do that, you're pretty laughing. And if you want to maybe add in some calves as well, you probably could, in which I would literally just do like a standing calf raise on a block or something that's not going to fall over. The big thing with training calves, people will say to me, oh Harry, I can't make my calves grow, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'll tell you what you're doing wrong. the movement. For calf training, you can really simplify it to a straight leg variation where you're obviously going heavy, pushing hard enough and getting stronger, but you're really milking the stretch every rep. So going as low as you can within reason and holding that stretch position for about 3 seconds and then finishing the rep. For whatever reason, the calves really respond well to that lengthened stretched range. So milk it as much as you can and do that consistently, getting strong in the process. You'll probably be surprised at the results you see when it comes to calf development. So that's a little tip at the end there. And kind of to round up, what I say is, despite the title of this video probably annoying you, it's there for fair reason. Home workouts actually do work, but you have to make them work. Ensure you have enough equipment to continue your progression, because you will be surprised how strong you will get if you're training properly and how quickly you will outgrow what you already have. So don't be afraid to invest in more equipment if you can and it's within reason. And secondly, home workouts will work if you try hard enough. Remain consistent, push yourself to if not close to failure, and just get stronger every week or every other week or 3 weeks, whatever it may be, and you'll be fine. Just trust me. If you don't do those things, they will only work until a point, and then eventually their effectiveness will drop off pretty aggressively. Like with all my videos, this is simply my opinion, and I'd love to hear your opinion in the comment section below. So tell me, do you work out at home or do you work out at the gym? And whatever your answer is, I'd love to know why. But until the next one, thank you for tolerating me. Thank you for tolerating my waffle about Sydney, who I am a fan of, and thank you for tolerating the video.